Coming up on today's show, Jim Howie McKenny, former Maple Leafs defenseman, former City TV sportscaster, a guy who helps a lot of people. Joe Tilley Sports, coming up. Welcome to the program. Our guest today, he was a defenseman born in Ottawa. He won a Memorial Cup championship. He played 604 NHL games, 594 of them as a Leaf. 81 career goals, 246 assists for 327 points. He is fifth all-time among Leaf defenders in scoring. He is a former NHL All-Star. He also worked at City TV, where he was a sportscaster for 20 plus years, and he is now an addiction counselor at Addiction Rehab Toronto. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Jim Howie McKenny to the program. Howie, nice to see you, my friend.
I looked a lot better in the other picture than I do now.
You look pretty good, I must say. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your career first, Howie. I looked at some of the sources here, and it says you were drafted 17th overall by the Leafs in 1963. But weren't you just signed by the club?
I was owned by the Leafs when I was 14 years old. As soon as you play junior A for their team, you're automatically owned by the Leafs for life. Had I known that I had a choice to go somewhere else, I would have, because there were only 6 teams in the league right then. And the only team that I really disliked were the Leafs, because they used to shove them down our throats every Saturday night. I had to watch the Leafs. And I was more of a Habs fan and a Boston fan. But, the only way I could come to Toronto if I get an education. So my mother maybe come here to go to St. Mike's, but it wasn't. They moved to Neil McNeil that year, so I went to Neil McNeil, and I think I had grade 10 when I came here, and then I did another 4 years of high school, and I finished with grade 10. So,
so that worked out well for you. Let's talk about a little. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the. Oh, sure. We missed you. We lost you. Where are you?
Yeah, I'm just trying to.
You've disappeared on us, Howie. Oh, yeah, loosen up a little bit. Okay. Okay. Take the jacket off. Stay well. Okay. Played high school hockey at Neil McNeil. You also played. with the Marlies. You mentioned Marlboroughs, and you won a Memorial Cup title in 1964. And let's talk about that 1964 Memorial Cup team, because it may have been maybe the greatest junior hockey team ever assembled. Let's talk about that team.
Yeah, well, I think we had like 10 or 12 guys that played over 10 years in the NHL later on. Starting from the goaltender, Gary Smith was a Vezina Trophy winner in Chicago with Tony O. Then I think Britt Selby and Ronnie Ellis were both rookies of the year in the NHL, which wasn't a big deal then because there was only about 3 or 4 rookies in the whole league because there were only 6 teams. But still, both those guys, they were great. Mike Walton, Peter Stemkowski was our big gun. Rod Sealing. God, and I'm going to miss somebody, but me.
Well, you're going to miss Shaky Walton and Jeremy. Pretty good club anyway. So that's a pretty hard team to beat. But the Leafs stacked that team up real nice.
One game we played 5 series. We had to play against the Junior Canadians, and then I think it was Niagara Falls Flyers. Then we had to play against North Bay from the Northern League, and then we had to play against NDG in the Metro League in Montreal, and then we played against the
Scotty Bowman's
Edmonton Oil. Yeah, we only lost 1 game in all those series, and it was in It was against NDG. We won the first game, and then we were in Montreal for a couple of days, so we were a little tired for that second.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they snuck a few in on us, and when they came to the Gardens, we blew them out. In the next
And
two
finished
or
them
three
off, yes.
games, they had no shot. Yeah, we had great big guys. We had Jim McKenny on defense, who was fantastic, and we had Jack Chip Chase and Ray Winterstein. Both of them were like 210 pounds, which was huge back then. We had a bigger team than anybody in the NHL. So
probably than the Leafs. I think Ronnie Ellis said that. Told me that you were bigger than the Leafs.
Yeah, we had a bigger
time.
team than the Leafs.
Yeah.
I don't know whether we could have beat them, but it would have been close if we played.
That's pretty awesome team.
No.
The
Leafs were good.
No.
Yeah,
they were good back then too. And matter of fact, you got called up by the Leafs up and down, for the first part of your career, but you were called up for that 66-67 squad for a few games. Tell me about that team. What was that team like?
Yeah, they had good players, and every time I'd get kicked out of school, I'd have to practice with them. So I'd go up to Tamashana Arena quite often to practice with the guys. And they had Johnny Bauer and Terry Sawchuk were the goalies. George Armstrong, I think, was the captain. Frank was there for a while. Mahavlich.
Right.
They had Carl Brewer, Bobby Bond, Larry Hillman. A really good bunch of guys. Great bunch of guys. I used to love going to the practices, not so much for the practice, but going to the Nob Hill Bar and Tavern after the practice. I used to end up being there with Sawchuk and Marcel Prono until about 6 or 7 o'clock. Took a long time to have lunch there.
Is it possible that might have had a little bit of an effect on your career, Howie?
The
partying.
Yeah, I was probably a full-blown alcoholic when I was like 17 years old. And everybody said "Oh yeah, he's an alcoholic." I didn't choose to be an alcoholic. Alcoholism had me. I didn't have alcoholism. It had me in its grips. And there was nothing I could do, but I knew there was something wrong. But I never did anything about it till I was like 40 years old. So I went another 25 years. And as we know now in recovery, that I was driven by 100 different forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. All the time. We're all driven by that 24 hours of the day, 7 days a week. It's really not a good headspace for a professional athlete in a contact sport. So I really couldn't give it my best. But I don't regret it for a second, because I wouldn't be able to do the job I do now had I not gone through all that. Unfortunately, it did affect my career to a certain degree. But I had a lot of laughs in the meantime, and I don't really regret anything. Who cares?
Speaking of a lot of laughs, Howie, tell us about some of the crazier times that you had there back with the. Because eventually you did make the club. You played 8 full seasons with the Leafs, give or take, and actually, you know what? I in the '71 playoffs against the Rangers, we just saw one of your goals. You had a tremendous shot. You had great wheels. 71 playoffs against the Rangers, you scored a beautiful goal and an end-to-end rush, a spectacular goal. Now this one would send the game into overtime. Unfortunately, of course, the Rangers would end up winning this game in the series. But just this rush, here it is right here, full flight in the offensive zone, and zing, boom, and that tied the game late in the third period in a game that you guys ended up losing. But wow, I mean, it was the start of a pretty nice run for yourself, and you did make the All-Star team. Matter of fact, back in the day, Jim Gregory and Frank Orr and others had suggested that perhaps Jim McKenny was going to be a better player than Bobby Orr. You remember those comparisons?
those guys aren't working in hockey anymore. I know Gregory.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, he didn't say it
Yeah.
in pro.
Well,
In I was pretty close to Bobby, but in pro, he just went to another level. You know, when a guy has a good year
right.
in the NHL, he's probably a plus 15 or plus 17. One year, Bobby was plus 121. Like they
Right.
scored 121 more goals when you're at even strength when he was on the ice for the Bruins than the other team did. I mean, he
Right.
was in another world altogether. You know, but I haven't
He
seen.
did.
I've
He did
never
have a
seen
good
it.
supporting cast, but yeah, you're right.
The way,
Yeah.
yeah, but he was great.
Yeah.
I always liked playing against Boston so I could watch him. You know,
Right.
just to see how great he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. We loved it.
Well, so Howie, tell us what are some of the crazy things that happened to you back in those '70s teams with the Leafs?
Well, I don't have total recall on a lot of the stuff. You know, right?
Right. I
Somebody made a
understand.
mistake. One of the 3 stars.
Well,
See,
yeah.
that's a big deal. I don't know what you got for that. Maybe a free chocolate bar or something. Yeah. I remember one time we played against the Russians. An all-star team from the OHL played against the Russian big team, and we had guys like Derek Sanderson, Bobby Cave, Serge Savard, um, uh, Mickey Redmond. Like we had all the best players in the OHL, and they packed the gardens for the game. And I think we ended up tying them like it was 6-all or 7-all, and we all got suitcases. They gave us Samsonite suitcases for playing in the game, you know. And they ended
Right.
up getting all the money from the whole deal. We ended up with the suitcases. We all go to the Parkside Tavern after the game for a couple of beers, and the next morning, Louis from the Parkside Tavern calls me at home, and he says, "Jim, I got 20 suitcases here. What do you want me to do with them?" I said, "I don't know. Give them to all your friends." I said, "Nobody else wants them. None of our guys want them
Hey,
anyway."
what
So
that
yeah, it
reminds
was
me of
okay.
it's. Remember the show It's Your Move, right? And if as a 3-time winner on the It's Your Move, you used to get Samsonite luggage and Z-brick wall covering and things like that, and a paper made pen.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember that distinctly. So yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Good.
I digress. So okay. So what was it like to play for Punch? Because they're
Yeah, a lot of
hey
people ask you what it was like playing in the NHL in the '70s, and I always ask them, "Have you seen that movie Hangover?" I said every road trip
yeah
was like that. Like we're just looking for trouble to get into all the time. We had nothing to do because we're always hanging around airports. We didn't have private planes or any of that stuff, so they'd always get you to the airport 2 hours before the flight left, and you'd be hanging around with nothing to do. So you end up going to the bar. You knew every bartender at every airport in Chicago, Denver, L.A. We had a pretty good time. I loved the traveling. It was great. You had like 8 or 9 of your buddies hanging around with you. Some of the guys didn't drink like the rest of us did because they depended on them to win the hockey games. For us, we were just around having a good time. And it was the first time that guys started making big money. When Bobby Hull jumped to the WHA and gave them credibility, all our salaries tripled. So instead of making like $30,000 or $40,000, I started out making 8 and 9. Then I made 10.5, 12, 17.5, 22, and I got to 40 and 60, and then all of a sudden I got a 5-year contract for 120. I thought, like, I'm from Ottawa East, right? I thought I was a billionaire. I thought, God Christ, I'll never have to work. This is great, and let's go to the bar. And
well
you
right.
know,
Then the partying gets in the way a little bit, right? Yeah. just a little bit.
We're all walking around with a couple of $100 in our pocket, and we didn't have any credit cards or anything, thank God. So we couldn't get into real big trouble, but we got into enough. But it was mainly fun.
You,
We had lots of fun.
right.
And the guys,
But you
great.
right.
Yeah,
You had some good seasons through there. Like you guys had a couple of good years in there, especially particularly in like around the 76 to 78 period. You had some pretty good seasons in there, and to beat the Islanders one year, you had the some pretty good teams. What? Because I was talking to Rick Vive, and he looked back on some of those teams, and he said that he thought that you guys were, in a position where you maybe could have got a little bit further and maybe done a little more than you did. What do you think kept you guys from reaching like higher goals?
There were a lot of other good teams in the league at that time. Philadelphia had a really good team. They had a tough team, but they had a really good team. They had guys like Rick McLeish and Reggie Leach and Tommy Bladen. They had a good hockey team, and they had our goaltender too, Bernie Perron.
Right, Bernie. Yeah.
We lost him to the WHA. Got nothing back for him. He went to the Miami Screaming Eagles. They folded, so then he's a free agent coming back. He could have come back to Toronto if they would have pursued him. But he ended up going to Philadelphia, and they get the best goaltender in the league. I don't think they would have won any Stanley Cups if they didn't have Bernie. So he might have made the difference. I'm not saying our goalies weren't just as good, but Bernie was pretty well the best in the league. We lost a lot of guys. We lost Paul Henderson. We lost Davey Keon. We lost Jimmy Harrison. We lost Ricky Lee. And Bernie. I mean, you take those five guys. If we would have had those five guys in the mid '70s and into the '80s, probably would have won 3 or 4 Stanley Cups. But had those guys stuck around, maybe I would have got sent somewhere else. So it ended up being good for me, anyways. I eventually got sent down to Dallas anyway.
Right.
Like at Christmas time when Roger Nielsen was their coach. He just came in and I think it was between me and Jonesy, and Jonesy was playing really well, and he was a good checking center. They needed him more than they needed me, so they sent me to Dallas, and they called me in and said, well, you're not playing much, so we're going to send you down to Dallas. They said, well, if somebody gets hurt, I'll probably come back. And Roger said, no, you're never coming back here. I said, really? So I told him to go to something that was physically impossible. But then I called him back in a couple of weeks, and I said, Roger, I apologize. I was a little short with you when I left, and I said, things couldn't be better for me. This is the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm getting paid in American dollars, and this is like playing in heaven down here. The weather's great. The guys are all really good guys, and he said, "Oh yeah, you're playing well." I said, "Yeah, I'm playing a little too much for my liking, but everything else was fantastic." I said, "We go to Court 5 and drink beer all afternoon. Then we go to the Mad Hatters and drink for free at night." I said, "This is heaven." I said, he hung up on me. Rogers was an amazing guy. Like, he used to have his hockey school every summer in Port Hope. He'd have all his old Peterborough Pete guys working for him. And I knew the girl that was his accountant, and I asked him, how much money did Roger make with that camp every summer? Because he was always packed. She said, yeah, he was packed, but he never made a cent. Said if somebody needed a new pair of skates, Roger would go out and get him a new pair of skates. Somebody needed a stick, Roger would go get him a stick. Some kid couldn't afford to come to the camp. Oh, come on. Well, I can't go because my brother, I got to look after my brother. Well, bring your brother too. Half the guys that went to his camp went there for nothing. And he was paying for the room and board and put the ice time and everything else. Like, he was an amazing guy. they were at the college in at Port Hope, and they were
Oh yeah,
on the they it was something like St. Mike's, but it's a boarding school, so you could go there and you'd stay.
Mount something. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
uh,
So I did Roger was a great guy and turned out to be an amazing coach. And did he ever call
good
you
coach.
back up though?
No, never. They called me back up for
No,
the
never
last
did.
game.
Yeah.
I told them no, I can't go. I'm going to the doubleheader of the Rangers this afternoon. We've got about 4 kegs of draft on ice right now, and we're all ready to go.
So I
so,
can't I can't come up and play for the
I
Leafs.
got
I'm
to call
sorry.
up Kurt Walker, but Kurt Walker punched somebody out the night before and broke his hand on the guy's helmet. So they wanted me to go back up there. I said no. They told me I'm never going back there, so I'm not going back there. Forget it. And then they
Right,
traded me to Minnesota, which was great. I went
right.
to Minnesota. That's when Minnesota went together with Cleveland. So they had, you know, 19 of the jobs were taken, and then there was about 40 of us fighting for the one other job. But I told all the guys, I don't give a shit how good you're playing. I'm making this team because the Leafs are paying my salary, and the only stipulation was that the Minnesota North Stars didn't send me back to the Leafs. That they didn't ask for a player or anything. Just keep him. Just keep him there. We don't want to
Keep
see
him.
him anymore.
We'll pay the
Yeah,
salary. You just keep him. Right.
yeah, which is great. Yeah.
Okay. So the
So
career
I
ends
stayed. Then
with the
they
North
sent me down
Stars.
to.
Okay. You played a little more in the minors after that, did you? Huh? You played a little bit more in the minors after that.
I played. Yeah, I played 2 years in the minors. You know, half the year with the Leafs, half in Dallas, and then half the next year in Minnesota. Then the other half in Oklahoma City. Then I went over to Europe and played in Rappersville, where I think Dougie Gilmore went there when the strike was on, and it was
Oh, I
just
remember that.
down the
Yeah.
lake from
Yeah.
Zurich. It was great. You play outdoors there. It was fantastic. No hitting. I
Wow.
should have gone there 5 years before. You know, it was fantastic. Loved it there. Met a lot of great
No
guys.
contact hockey. You gotta love that.
Yeah, I still talk to a lot of the guys I played with over in Switzerland. They're really, really good guys. It was
Like
fantastic.
Swiss guys or North American
Swiss
guys.
guys, yeah. Swiss guys, and
Oh yeah.
Wayne
Cool.
Dillon was there with me 1 year, so I see Dilly every once in a while. We laugh about you know, what went on over there, and it was all good.
Yeah.
But I have no bad memories about the hockey. The hockey was great. And then I was lucky enough to come back here, and I had no job, and I had no education. I had a grade 10 education. Where am I going to go? And so I tried a couple of jobs. I got fired from them.
Sportscaster.
Skills, huh?
Sportscaster. You don't
Sportscaster.
need any education to be a sportscaster. There you go. How'd you end up at City?
I
How'd
finally
you end up at
found the
City? Well, you
job
were
that I
Q107 first, right?
Yeah. So they hired me at Q107. I went begging for a job. I begged Gary Slate for a job because they were one of my accounts at one of the other jobs I had. And they said, "Well, we'll hire you in sales and we'll let you do the morning sports." So I did the morning sports, and I went 7 months, made no sales. So they fired me from sales but kept me on air. So I was on the morning zoo with Scruff Connors and Gene Velitis and Ted Wallish, and they were all great, great guys. And I had a good time there. We had a lot of laughs. And
Yeah,
then
still in touch with
eventually,
Gene
Jim Taddy.
on the internet. Hey,
Oh, yeah? Okay.
so
So
yeah, so Jim Taddy. What happened with that? Go ahead.
yeah, Taddy went to Global, and then Peter Gross needed another guy to work in sports. I knew Moses Neimer because he was my next door neighbor. I used to run with him all the time, and that's so he gave me like a screen test, and then I was on trial, and so it was great. Yeah, I ended up getting the job there, and I always thought I was going to get fired, so I never got into the pension plan. Holy Jesus! Where was
What
I
was going
there?
on there?
I don't know. Don't let my
Yeah.
wife see it.
Hey, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
So
Perfect.
what? So
It was good.
Moses and I. I mean, I remember when I first started at CTV, it was the same kind of thing. I had a 3 month probationary period, and I got through
Yeah.
that, and then I was locked into the union and all that. So we worked out pretty good. But we have another clip here from. We're gonna play the clip here. It's a clip from City TV, and I wanted you to tell us afterwards what was going on here. But let's listen to this,
Anyway,
okay?
shouldn't have
Hang
come
on a
here
sec.
today and,
Go ahead, Vic.
well, yeah, there's quote on it.
Hey, wait a second. Hold on a minute. Hey, wait a second.
I had the Braves last year. That's the real thing.
Wait a minute, Howie.
Leafs toughest ticket in town these days. I got a few connections upstairs, Mike. I do. Honest. Okay. Yeah, Bill, I'm going to need a couple, eh?
Well, I've got them here, Jim.
Oh,
Are you
good.
paying for these?
Watch your language, eh? No, that's a couple of dozen, is it?
At least a couple.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Here, I gotta get your signature.
Okay, no problem. I'll sign anything, as long as it isn't a check. Yeah. Great. Hang on to that signature, eh? My hockey card's worth 9 cents now. Yeah, fabulous. Yeah. Of course, these are for San Leafs and the Habs, 130.
That is awesome stuff. Our buddy Paul Patsko brought that up. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. The guy I was talking to outside the front was Mike Waslin. And
Right.
he was the head scalper down on the street. And I don't.
Sure.
I went up and got a couple of tickets for a friend of mine, and but I could always get them from Mike anyways. And I still see Mike now. He's got a farm out in Guelph. I see Junior down at some of the games, working the games, and
Right.
everybody's great. They're really good guys. Yeah, but it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun. And going to the Gardens, there was like being part of a family in that place. If the bikers or the cops were ever after me, if I got to the Gardens, I'd be okay. They would never give
You're
me up.
safe.
When I got back to that workroom, they would look after everything back there. So, yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was great. It was great playing for Harold. He was good. He'd shit on us a lot, but he always paid you well. Everybody made pretty good money there. A lot of the other teams would say, "Oh yeah, all these guys are great and they're great," but they wouldn't pay them. I was at one time making more money than Guy Lafleur. Guy Lafleur signed a 7-year contract for 110 grand a year, and then Bobby Hull jumped to the WHA, and the Canadians never boosted Guy's contract. They just made him play out his contract for 7 years at 110,000 a year. So I used to go to Montreal. I used to bum sticks from him because I was always running out of sticks, and I used the same pattern he did. So I get Doc, their dressing room guy,
Trainer?
that Montreal owned us.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
tell Doc, get a couple of
The
sticks
equipment
from
guy.
the flower. Need a couple tonight. And so he goes over there, and then he comes back, and he's got nothing. But usually he'd bring me two or three sticks back right away. This time he waited till all the guys were in the room. And then I said, "Doc, where are my sticks?" He says, "Well, I talked to the flower. He says he can't waste any." So I said, "Well, why don't
He
you
must be
go
short.
back? Yeah, you go back over there and ask him what he's making tonight. He'll be playing 40 minutes for 110 grand a year. I'll be sitting on the end of the bench for 120." Okay. So he went back and told him Guy laughed. Yeah, he didn't give.
Those are crazy times because I hear stories about how Lafleur used to step back into the hallway behind the bench and light up smokes during the game.
Oh, well, he used to smoke in between periods.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now
Yeah.
played in an all-star game in Chicago, and we went out for the warm-up, and then I came back in. I grabbed a smoke and fired it up, and I was walking in the cannon, and Henry Richard was looking at me, and I said, "Well, you never seen a superstar smoke between periods?" And he just shook his head. I said, "The flower does it all the time." He said, "Yeah, but you're not the flower."
Yeah, good point.
He was
Yeah, Guy
right.
could
Yeah,
fly, that's for sure.
he was
Yeah.
hang on right. Henri was a great guy. Great guy. I think
So
I owe him.
the
Yeah. Huh?
right. Yeah, the times were a little bit different back then. I remember going into the dressing room after games, and there'd be guys like sitting on the floor, can of beer in one hand, cigarette in the other hand. This is in the Leafs dressing room, and things were a little bit different back then.
Yeah, no beer. Yeah, we couldn't drink beer in the dressing room because if you drank there and then were driving home and you ever hit anybody or hit anything, the Leafs could be sued. So we couldn't have any booze in there. So that's why we
Oh,
all left the dressing room very quickly. Yeah, I used to be in,
okay.
have a shower, and leave by the time Palmy was coming through the door. I said, "Good game, Palmer. See you later. I'm going up to the Golden Mug."
You're in civvies, and he's well. He probably
I
just be
was there
named one of the
at that
stars, right? So he just had another.
he had to skate out for the 3 stars and all that crap. Yeah.
Yeah. By
Right?
that time, you're out the door.
And I wasn't alone either. There were about 3 other guys
Yeah.
with me. See you later. Yeah. No, it was fantastic.
So
It was a lot of fun. And the management was
along
good.
the way, though, okay, and management
Which,
was good for you. Well, the management
yeah,
was
yeah,
okay with it.
was all, yeah, yeah. I'd imagine Harold hated me for a while, but I mean, he hated everybody, so it didn't really matter.
Right.
And
Right.
he's paid okay. I played for good coaches. I believe played for Punch at the start. He was probably one of the best coaches in the world at the time, or maybe of all time. And Johnny McClellan was the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. So Red Kelly, he was a Hall of Famer at playing center and on defense. Nobody else has ever done that. You know, I can't name any other player. Maybe Doug Moans. Doug Moans played defense, I think, in Chicago. Then when he went to Boston, he played forward. But not very many guys could play like two positions at that level. Like I see
Well,
Morgan Riley. They got him playing over on the left side. He played on the right side for like 3 or 4 years. Now you go over on the left side. It's like walking on the moon. I couldn't. I'd play on the other side every once in a while. They'd shove me in there because somebody got hurt or something. And I said to Red, I said, "Fuck, I can't play on the left side." Red, Jesus Christ. He said, "Well, just pretend you're somebody else. Pretend you're Doug Harvey or something." Doug Harvey could play
yeah.
anywhere. He said,
Well, that's
"Pretend
all.
you're Doug
That's
Harvey
all.
and go over on the left side and shut up." I said, "Okay, I'll try it." And it'd work out okay. I'd pretend I was Doug for the whole night. And like I studied Doug Harvey when I was a kid, like for years. So I didn't, I knew exactly how he played. I couldn't play as good as him, but I knew what he did. And so it
How'd you
was
get?
okay. But yeah,
Yeah, Doug Harvey was unbelievable. He was the
he
best
was the
defenseman in
best.
the world up until Bobby Orr came along.
Eddie Shore before him used to carry the puck a lot, but Doug Harvey was the only guy that used to carry. Doug Harvey and Red Kelly, at in the mid '50s to early '60s, they were the only two rushing defensemen in the league that I know of. And not that I followed it fairly closely, but whoever played the Leafs, I got to
Yeah.
see. And then I'd see the
Right.
Habs be on the next night in French, or in the afternoon you could watch the old Quebec League, and that was in French too. So that's how I learned how to speak French, when I
Right.
watch play-by-play in
Watching
French.
hockey.
Yeah. Debout, let's see.
Debout.
Yeah, yeah, all
Debout.
that shit.
So,
Yeah.
so now, how did you get the nickname Howie?
Oh, when I was in with playing with the Marlies, there was another guy on defense third named Jim McKenny. So they kept getting us mixed up. So they needed a nickname for me, and I had a facial and behavioral resemblance to Howie Young, one of the finest alcoholics to ever play in the NHL. He was my
Yes.
idol, and so they started calling me Howie because I looked like Howie. So that's how
Right.
I ended up with the name Howie. The guys I used to play with still call me that. the ones that are still alive. Most of the guys they're dying off pretty fast now. I might be the next one, but I could care less.
No, you're looking too good, Howie. You're looking too good. So tell us about how you got into the field of addiction and recovery, addiction rehab at Addiction Rehab Toronto, and
I get it. Everybody was on my ass for drinking too much and smoking pot and doing all that shit when I was like in my early 30s. So a buddy of mine that I used to use with, he was going to AA, and I said, geez, maybe I should go there, to get everybody off my ass. So I started going to AA. I'd go to speaker meetings and, I'd smoke half a joint before I went there and smoke another half on the way home. And I nipped that in the bud. It only went on for about 8 years. And then I went to quit smoking. I went to get hypnotized for smoking. And the doctor that was going to hypnotize me, he said, I got to know a little bit about your background before I hypnotize you for the smoking. He said, do you drink at all? I said, well, I've been in AA for 8 years. I said, but I still have the odd slip. He said, well, when did you have your last drink? I said, well, I had a few pops last night. He said, okay, you got a problem there. How about marijuana and hashish? I said, oh, I like that stuff. He said, how often do you use it? I said, pretty well every day. And he said, how long is that gone on for? I said, about 14 years. He said, I think you have a problem with that. And he said, how about cocaine? I said, no, I never touched that stuff. When in actual fact, I'd done an 8-ball all by myself the night before, which is 3.5 grams.
right,
And,
right,
so then I go the next morning and go to the bank before I go to Dr. Rotenberg to get hypnotized for smoking. I'll go to the bank, get another $350 because I know I'm going to be way too sick to go to work that day. And then I jump into a cab and I go over to Hyde Park. I was living at Bayview in Moore at that time. I jump in a cab. I go over to get hypnotized for smoking. And the doc says, I can hypnotize you for the smoking, but it's probably not going to work on you. You've got about 8 or 9 other things you got to look after before you even think about quitting smoking. And so he sent me to a meeting that night. And then the next night, that guy sent me to another new meeting. And when I went into that meeting, it was different than all the meetings I'd gone to for 8 years. And it wasn't any better, it wasn't any worse. It was just different. And I think it was my time. I went into that room. I never used again. I never drank again. And I started going to meetings. I was doing 90 meetings in 90 days and all that stuff that they were telling me to do. And everybody was going to treatment centers. And I'm saying, I wouldn't mind, going to San Antonio or Palm Springs or something, work on my golf game and get a little recovery. It'd be fine. I went and got assessed at Bellwoods or Donwoods. No, it was Bellwoods. And because I had a buddy that ran Bellwoods. And he got me in there. I got assessed. And very quickly, they said, you're a 3-month guy. You're coming in here for 3 months. I said, well, I better check at work. And I went down to work and told them that, I got a few problems and I got to go into treatment. And they said, yeah, we know. And, so you can have the time off or we're not going to pay you. So I'm no math genius, but I figured it out. It was going to cost me like $44,000 to go to Bellwoods for 3 months and not getting paid. So like 44 grand's a lot of money. I knew I'd have to make 88 to keep the 44 to pay for the
right.
That was the magic number for me, 44. Anytime I thought of using or drinking or anything, 44 grand, no sir, no thank you. I ain't doing it. I kept going to the meetings. I got better and better. And, I told her, I said, do you have an outpatient program? I can't afford this. And she said, well, how much money do you spend when you're using drugs and alcohol? I said, that's not the point. She said, that's exactly the point. I said, well, I'll just go to the meetings, and I'll get better. She said, no, you can go to as many meetings as you want, but you'll never get it. So she was the MVP of my recovery because anytime I wanted to use, I just think of her and the 44 grand and there was no way I would use them. There was no, and so I kept going to the meetings, and I didn't have any recovery. I was just sober. I was still crazy, and I didn't know anything about the big book, and I always had the big book handy because I work on Zoom here every day. So, you know, there it
Right.
is there. I can't put it on the screen, but I'm sure it's
Does
there.
it look like this one?
Yeah. Yes, that's the one. Yeah. Yeah. And there's lots of us out there. Trust me, Joe. There's lots of us.
Yeah.
And we're not bad people. We're sick. We're very sick. You know, and
Right.
the disease had me in its grip, and my son was in the same predicament. And he came into the program, got a couple of years sober. Then he went out on a toot, and a guy came up to him in a meeting that he'd never been to before. When he came back, he didn't want to go to his home group because he was too embarrassed. So he went to a meeting he'd never ever been to before. And this guy comes up to him and says, "Listen, kid, you look like you're hurting. I've got the answer for you." And Jason told him to beat it, you know, mind his own business. He went to another meeting the next night he'd never been to in his life. Same guy was there. He said, "Listen, God's talking here. Go get yourself a book and we'll go to coffee time and we'll start going through it." Within 2 weeks, Jason was bouncing off the walls. He had better recovery than I did. And I had 5 years. I was 5 years sober. And I asked him what happened. And he tells me the story about this guy that took him through the book. And I said, "Well, where are these guys?" And he said, "Well, they have meetings down on the beaches tomorrow night." I said, "Well, I'm going to go." I went to there. The first guy I bumped into when I went into the meeting, I asked him to take me through the book. He said, "Well, where do you live?" I said, "Hyde Park." He says, "Oh, I'm at Bloor and Keel." I said, "Perfect." So we could meet at the Grenadier restaurant every morning for like 30 days, 35 days. And he ended up taking me through the first 164 pages of the book. And then after that, I started taking people through the book. And it just mushroomed from there. And I've never had a problem since. You know, you know, as far as drinking and drugging go, I have no desire at all to ever drink or use drugs again. But my behavior gets a little offside every once in a while if I stop doing what I have to do, you know, because I'm still crazy. You know, the main problem for the alcoholic isn't the phenomenon of craving that we get when we put the stuff into us. The main problem is if you know you've got the phenomenon of craving, why would you do it? And that's the insanity of the disease. You keep thinking it's going to be different every
Right.
time, and it is different. It's worse. Yeah, it gets worse.
Yeah.
It's a progressive disease that always gets worse, and it's rampant out there now. I work at a treatment center. They got 40 people in there now, and I haven't been able to go because of the COVID. So I'm going to eventually start working on Zoom there. But
Right.
you know, it's packed. Another place I used to work out in Port Hope. It's packed. It's packed, and they're opening a new one that's got 40 more beds, so they'll have 60. They'll have 60 beds at that place, and it'll be full. You know, it's rampant out there, and you know, people are terrified for their kids, and you know, so they send them to the treatment centers, and the treatment centers can keep you sober for 30 days. You know, they physically they can isolate you from boozing out and drugs, but they can't look after the mental part. That's you got to do that yourself. You know, and that's
Right.
it's using this book. This book and this book get you to
That-
God. And I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. I can get spirituality like that.
Right.
If I want to be a Catholic or a Buddhist or a Hebrew or something, it's going to take me 10 or 11 years to learn all the disciplines of those religions. So you know, there's no way that I would do that. But I can believe in a power greater than myself, just like that, and you know, a power greater than Jim. And I don't have to go around looking for my problem. All I got to do is go up into the washroom and have a peek in the mirror. There's my problem right there. Me. I'm my problem. I caused all my own trouble. You know, I got sick with this disease and I didn't get help. right away, and I'm sure the help was always offered to me, but I never took it. And now, like I'm working with maybe 5 guys a week, 5 guys 3 times a week, and I go to a couple of meetings a week. So I ended up doing about 18 meetings a week. This Zoom stuff, it's fantastic. Whatever system you're using here, which you say is better than Zoom. They're all Zoom to me. I don't know anything about technology.
Yeah. Well, this system is slightly different, but it's related to Zoom. It's kind of the similar thing.
It could be better, could be
It's
worse.
called
I don't
vMix.
know. I'm totally ignorant.
Vic likes it. Vic's a boss, so we like it too.
I do.
The Zoom thing is amazing. Like, I mean, you can't get out to meetings physically, but you can get to tons of meetings. You got meetings all over the world. There's a guy that I work with who's from Colorado, right? So I mean, it's pretty freaking amazing that you can do this kind of thing, right? So it's very helpful. But you talked about the spirituality of the recovery and the spirituality that we have, which requires a spiritual solution in order for us to remove that obsession, because that's the liar in my head keeps telling me something different unless I find that spiritual solution.
Yeah, the snake's living in here.
Yeah,
the snake's telling you go ahead and have one. Or, this is boring. Yeah, we're getting bored. Let's get into it. And I don't listen to it anymore. He doesn't even talk to me anymore. The snake. I got a conscious contact with God, and God talks to me through all the people that I meet, even in the program or not in the program. I hear things, and geez, that's got to do with me. And I hear it from newcomers. I hear it from guys that have 40 years sobriety and recovery. I hear it all over the place. God talks to me in so many different ways. A lot of times it's coming from my wife. She's screaming at me, that I'm an idiot.
Right.
And I used to get angry with that. Now I just say thanks. I needed that. We'll have a look at that. I have no intention of having a look at it, but I tell her I'm going to have a look at it. Because they don't care.
But at least you can be calm enough to say, I'll look at it, right? You'll be calm enough to say
right.
that.
I don't start screaming back at them. Make things worse.
No, I mean, I love this recovery chat. It's fantastic. But I also want to talk a little bit about the Maple Leafs and what you think of the Leafs before we let you go. And what are your thoughts? Do you like the changes they made in the off season, and do you like what you see?
Yeah, I think they got a real good hockey club. They came out flat the one time in Ottawa, but the next night I think Keith put in Campbell. And the guys played great in front of them because they knew they had to play better, tighter, because they like Campbell, they like Freddie too, but they knew they had to help him, and so they all pulled together and they played great that second game. Ottawa had no shot, and last night against Edmonton, they outshot Edmonton 2-1 going into the third period. They had 22 shots to 11. And Edmonton knew that. Edmonton knows that the Leafs have a deeper team than them. They have that one big line with Draisaitl and McDavid. What a hockey player. Yeah. He's like, we were lucky because, like, through our time on this earth, we've been able to see players like Bobby Orr and Gordie Howe and Doug Harvey and Boom Boom Geoffrion, and then they move into Sittler and
Gretzky.
And then Gretzky and Lemieux, then Paul Coffey, and then Christ. Now this kid comes and holy Christ, he can do things that I have never ever seen before. I'm just amazed. It just blows me away that what he can do with the puck. But he can't beat the Leafs all by himself. He almost did last night, but. The Leafs can, put Matthews' line against those guys and play with them. They can play up to that level with Matthews and Marner and whoever they put on the other side. Even put Wayne Simmons there. Simmons has been great.
I think those two lines that they have are incredible. I really do. Those,
Yeah,
the two
their
lines at
second
least,
line.
the top two lines are, those are,
Yeah, their second and third
two of the
line
better
are
lines in
way
the game.
stronger than anything Edmonton can put out there. And their defense is really good. I think the one new kid
Brody.
he's having trouble.
Brody,
He's
Bogosian.
struggling a little bit. He's going to come. He's a good hockey player.
Sure.
He's just having confidence problems there right now. As soon as he forgets about it, and he realizes he's playing with one of the best defensemen in the NHL, he should be getting better immediately. Like when Brian Leach came here from the Rangers, he played with Brian McKay, and McKay was a good hockey player before. When Brian Leach came, immediately McKay became an all-star. He became an all-star defenseman in the league just because he was playing with Leach. Leach would always be in the right position, feed him the puck at the right time, and he learned a ton. And he was a good player from then on. Or a great player from then on. He was a good player before, but he went from the Islanders to Vancouver to Chicago, and then to the Leafs. Like people they could see the potential in him, but maybe they didn't want to keep him enough. And then the Leafs got him, and they got like 7 or 8 great years out of him. He was a hell of a hockey player. Then he went to Florida, and, played okay there, and now he's retired. Good hockey player.
Yeah.
Good players make you better. Play with Matthews and Marner and probably score about 20. I can't even bend down and put my skates on. But God, those two guys are incredible. The talent that they've got is amazing. And now they got guys like Thornton and Spezza around the dressing
Simmons.
room. And when they play badly, those guys will come in and tell them, you guys are good players. Get your ass in gear. You're all sitting around moping around, feeling better. Just go ahead and
be
play.
better.
Go ahead and have time. Have some fun out there. And hit somebody. Get hit and hit somebody, and you get into the game. Even if you get the shit kicked out of you, at least you're in the game.
Yeah.
You're in.
I've seen more of an edge. I've seen more of an edge with Matthews this year. I've seen more of an edge with him, and it's good.
Oh,
Positive.
Well, that started last year when they got beat really badly in Tampa Bay. Then Tampa Bay came here on the Wednesday. They got beat badly by Tampa Bay on the Sunday night. Then they came to Toronto on the Wednesday. It was the last game before COVID. And Matthews was the best player on the ice by far. And he was pounding guys. He was going in, taking the body and making plays. Every shift that he was out there, he was creating chances or getting chances for himself. And he was using his body. He's a big kid. And
one of the best players have had, I think, really. Yeah. If not the best.
Now. He's even going to get better.
For sure. Yeah, it's pretty awesome when you think about it.
Goaltending, they've got a good team.
Any chance that they could be contending for the Cup this year?
Well, I don't know how they're going to have the Cup. I mean, are they going to have a Canadian Cup and an American Cup? If they do that, the Leafs have a Cup.
Right, because their division, they're four. There's going to be four semifinalists. The winner of the winner of each division playoff round, like after they start with 4, then go to 2, then go to 1, and then you're left with 4, and then they play semifinals based on their rankings, regular season rankings, and then they go from there. So they got a shot. If they win their division, they're in the Final Four. So I think they got a shot for sure. Yeah.
Well, they got a shot to win it, the whole league, or a shot to win in Canada.
I think both. I think for sure. I think they're going to win their division.
Yeah, I don't know whether
one of the Final Four. But so
I think they can beat anybody with the team that they have now. They can play against Columbus and beat Columbus. Columbus has a really tough team. They're built for the playoffs. They're a real grinded out team, and the Leafs can beat them. Leafs took them to 7 games last year, and then they lost. They lost in 7, and it took Tampa Bay 7 games to get rid of Columbus. So, I mean, the Leafs were pretty close last year, and now they're better. They're better because they didn't have Riley all last year, right? They couldn't afford. There was
missed 23 games.
One player they couldn't afford to lose last year, and they lost him. He was out. He lost. He missed 25, 30 games last year. He's an amazing hockey player. He can join the rush faster than anybody else in the league, I think. I think he's just as good as Doughty or any of those top 4 or 5 defensemen in the league. He's right there. So when you've got all that, you've got all the components that you can win the Stanley Cup with that team that they have there now. Well, if they all stay healthy,
no question. And I was just going to say, it takes a good defenseman to know a good defenseman. Howie, I want to thank you for being on the show today. As a guest of the Joe Tilley Sports Show, you get foursome from Club Link. We'll hook you up with that. I'd wait till the spring to use it though, just because
Really?
And we'll definitely get out there and hit the ball together. Yeah, a little bit. Okay, great. Buddy. Remember, we're all in this together. Thanks, man.
Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Joe.
Promotional consideration provided by ClubLink. ClubLink. One membership, more golf.
Excuse me. Yeah, let me introduce you to Steve. Having the round of his life, finally gonna pick up some skins, then he gets here, and now this. Try entering and exiting the bunker on the same low side, and then just a couple of swipes with this to clean things up, and everything will be hunky-dory.
Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at cosaonline.com. Also, check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round, and go to freescratch.ca for your chance to win a new fabulous prize every day with COSA. Time now for our weekly sports analytics segment. Here's Kwame Bryan.
Hi, my name is Kwame. I'm a developer ambassador here at Algrand. And for this week, we had Jim McKenny on the show, and we brought up some stats from Travis Dermott. And I have no idea who this player really is, and I'm looking to hear your insights, Joe. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, thanks, Kwame. We thought that would be a good matchup for young Jim McKenny. We're not sure exactly who Travis Dermott is yet. He's had to deal with some injury issues, but like Howie, I think he could potentially be an all-star down the road. Well, it was a big week for the Blue Jays, wasn't it? All right. Here's a nice upgrade in the outfield. The Jays available. George Springer agreed to a 6-year deal worth $150 million. The 3-time All-Star also has a pair of Silver Slugger awards and a World Series MVP trophy on his resume. Well, not many guys can say that. The Jays also took a run at Michael Brantley, but Brantley opted to re-sign with the Astros. They also bolstered their bullpen, landing free agent relievers Kirby Yates and Tyler Chatwood. Yates had an off year due to bone chips in his elbow, but he's had surgery to correct that problem. He could be a dynamite signing. And I've got news for you, folks. The Jays are going to be contenders this year. All right. Well, the Raptors, just when you thought it was time to write them off, they go and reel off 4 straight wins. And before that, lost to the Heat, of course. They're playing strong defensively now. Chris Boucher has been as good as we could have possibly hoped. Pascal Siakam has picked up his game. Norm Powell appears to have turned the corner, although Norm is rumored to be on the trade block, so we'll see what happens there. OG Anunoby is finally starting to earn some of that big new contract that he signed, $18 million per year. Bottom line is the Raptors are definitely in the playoff hunt, along with a lot of other teams. It's been a great year and a nice run for the Buffalo Bills, coming off a huge win over the Ravens. Josh Allen, oh, what a year. Love to see the Bills make it to the Super Bowl, but I don't think they can beat the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, yes, he suffered a concussion last week. We saw his picture just moments ago, and there he is. But he should be good to go on for Saturday's AFC Championship. He can beat you with his feet or his arm. He is the real MVP. KC will prevail. They are favored by 3 in that game. In the NFC, what can you say about Tom Brady? Steady Eddie outplayed Drew Brees, who may have played his last game. Brady is amazing, but that Brady magic will not be enough against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. The Pack are also favored by 3. They're just a better team than the Bucs on both sides of the ball, and they should win. But it's going to be a fun game. And a reminder, there's a matchup. A reminder to subscribe to Joe Tilley Sports on YouTube. You don't want to miss any of the latest news that we got coming along. We close with a look at the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, they're trusted business associates, and all-around great folks. I highly recommend them, and I want to thank once again Jim McKenny for being on the show today. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.
Get Aldo at Remax Crossroads. Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit www.getaldo.com to find out what next-level real estate looks like. RS Demolition and Excavation has extensive experience with complete teardowns and interior strip-outs. Looking to build a custom home? RS Excavating Services has the experience you need to build and establish neighborhoods. For the highest level of quality and cost-efficient results, we provide innovative demolition solutions completed on time and on budget while ensuring our number one priority, safety. Call 647-852-3006 for an estimate or visit rsdemolition.ca. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today, and let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. The Painting Pros. Want to freshen up a single room, change the appearance of your entire home, update the look of an older property, or completely transform your building? Go with the pros. Our fully insured team is skilled in surface preparation, selection of the proper finishes, as well as the application of the selected paint coatings. The perfect finish for your home or business. Call the Painting Pros, 289-830-2331, or visit thepaintingpros.ca. Goldline Resources, discovering high-grade gold in Sweden. Goldline Resources owns a prospective portfolio of 4 high-grade gold exploration projects located on the Goldline mineral belt of north-central Sweden, and 1 gold exploration project in the Skellefteå belt of north-central Sweden. For more information on how you can invest in this new initiative, go to goldlineresources.com or call 1-800-858-9710. Goldline Resources can also be found on the TSX Ventures Exchange as GLDL.
The Joe Tilley Show is available on the Barn Burner Network on Zingo TV. Download both the Barn Burner and Zingo TV apps from their respective iOS and Android app stores. Both apps are free. Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku, and Roku sticks.
Yeah.